to the Good Share Podcast with Ryan and Ice. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Ice.
All right.
Caught me off guard, man. I was surprised.
I got you off guard on that one, man. I just jumped right in with
did.
both feet, man. Take that baby right across stage.
I think of his point where.
Think about it. There's a point where we're doing a podcast today. Oh my gosh.
Dude, is that at your house or mine?
I don't know if they're stopping here or not.
It's
Yeah.
my place.
Is it your place?
Yeah.
I thought it was here. I totally thought it was here.
They're coming
That's
for
crazy.
me, man.
Technology. Man, how good things sound. It's amazing.
Oh, all right.
All
We're
right.
off to a great start here. Folks,
Oh
I
my
just want
gosh.
to tell you this episode has taken about an hour to get to actually recording it. I've been FaceTiming with Ryan for an hour. We have not done shit.
True story.
Which that's kind of how it goes.
It's par for the course.
Yeah.
I gotta pull up some notes.
Hey,
okay,
Hi,
yeah.
real quick before we get into this, how are you feeling? We talked, the last podcast we talked about testosterone and all that. And, I mean, have you noticed?
Yeah.
It's been like 9 days since you had the.
It's been that. It has been that. Yes.
I mean, have you noticed a difference at all?
So today is Thursday, March 18th, and I had the pellets inserted on the 9th. Was that
Whatever
right?
whatever last Tuesday was.
Yeah, whatever last Tuesday was. So yes,
Correct,
the 9th.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been 9 days, which I'm not supposed to feel anything different for at least 7 days, if not a little longer than that. But I will say this. I have noticed a slight. Now, this hasn't been like a massive jump like I may have been expecting, but I have noticed an energy bump where it's not like I have an abundance of energy, but what I have is I am able to get through the day without feeling incredibly sluggish and
Like less fatigue.
yeah,
Okay.
discombobulated.
Yeah.
Is that at the end of the day? My end of the day would have been like around 5,
Sure.
which is not the end of the day.
No, especially not when you have kids.
Yeah. So today, I will say today I am tired and I'm feeling quite a little bit tired. I may even look a bit tired if you're watching the video because I had a very late night. I had a 3-hour drive back home from a gig and I didn't get home till about 2 a.m. So with this, you can have your red blood cell count go up quite a bit, and they recommend that you donate blood to get rid of the extra plasma. Oh, wow. So with that, I did notice that my legs, the behind, not the front part of the thigh,
Not your quad, but like your hammy
yes,
on the backside.
and down to my calves, got like tight where it felt like I needed to get a good stretch.
Okay.
But didn't matter how much I stretched, they just continued feeling that way.
Interesting.
But it was only in my legs. Yeah, so really weird. And then a couple times where I felt like, I don't want to say a tight chest, but maybe slightly. Okay. A few things like that. But the energy is a little bit better. I feel like I have a little less mind fog.
All right, well that's good.
Or brain fog or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that as it continues going on, and the other thing is, I couldn't do any real exercises because the procedure, the incision's pretty deep, but they don't staple or stitch anything. It's only steri-strips over the incision. So you can't do anything that's going to cause that to like tear or whatever, because then you're going to have to take a trip to the ER for them to stop the bleeding.
Right. Nobody wants to do that. So
nobody wants to do it. So I can't really do any real exercise. I feel like now I might be able to ease my way into some cardio, because how the pellets get released is through your cardiovascular system and it working.
Right.
So I feel like if I want to see the maximum benefit from this procedure and everything, I should really start working on getting some cardio and exercise done. But I had to wait, which is unfortunate. Yeah. But
that's something I definitely want to talk more about. I kind of figured this topic is going to be like a 3 or 4 episode arc.
Well, this is you're right. This is going to be a pretty extensive one, and for good reason, because this has been the progression of 4 years of your life.
Yeah, I mean, November 5th, 2017 to 18 to 19. Yeah, this will be like the 4th year.
So this episode, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about your personal journey, for the most part, of where you began about 4 years ago. Wait, hold on. That'd been 2010 was you and I. That's further back.
But
that's a much different stage too.
Yes, but I want to talk about that because it there are some things that I learned that when I did it, when I made my second attempt, I changed and had more success. So,
right.
I do want to throw a disclaimer out before we get into this. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a certified trainer. I'm not a nutritionist. These are just my personal experiences, and this is a topic I'm really into. Training and nutrition, and they're things that I research in Google and YouTube all the time. Like, it's become a real passion of mine. I have thought about going back to school at some point and getting a degree in like nutrition and wellness. But I'm not a doctor, so don't take anything I'm saying as like Bible. Like I'm just all I can tell you is what I did and what has worked for me and didn't work for me. We'll talk about that too. But
yeah, and I think having like an understanding of like previous episodes of who you are.
I just don't want someone to like do something and then be in the hospital and be like, well, Matt Iceman on Good Share podcast said to do this. And now, like, no.
Right.
I'm putting that right out there right now. Like,
right.
You do whatever you want, but I'm not saying this is right for you to do, but
sure. Well, like I was saying, I think knowing the person you are, like listening to some of the previous episodes, I think people can kind of understand whether or not they're that type of person too, right? And every single workout and diet is individualistic. I think that's
I mean, there are certain rules that apply to everyone, but as far as like finding the thing that you really like to do that you can keep doing consistently. That is up to you, and you got to find what works for you.
And that is, we've all heard this. That is a lifestyle change.
Yes,
it is a lifestyle change, and
that's one thing
decision.
I will get into. Yeah, it's not just it's nothing we're going to talk about. At least for me, when I decided to do this for real, it was not a temporary. Like, I'm going to do this such and such diet for 6 months. It was, okay, I really need to reevaluate how I am treating my body and how if I really would like to be around for as long as possible, and what I can do to be able to live the longest, healthiest, most fulfilling life possible.
Right on.
I
think the majority of us want that same thing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your first attempt and what that was, and what exactly does that mean, and what happened?
So I had always been overweight. I mean, I was pretty large. And at different points in my life, larger than others. But I mean, when you met me, like I was a big dude, right?
Yeah.
I was always
you're very tall. You're 6'4".
I'm 6'3".
6'3".
And I mean, I don't remember, what I weighed in high school, but I'm sure I was by like junior, senior year, I was pretty much full grown. I bet I was every bit of 300 pounds or more, or if not 300, I was probably close to it. But, in 2010, I joined a gym that I think you were already a member.
Yep.
And, I didn't really I had no plan. It was just like, oh, I feel like I need to do something, right?
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm taking notes on the where we're at in the whole list of things, so don't be distracted by me.
And at that point in my life, I do remember weighing myself then, and that's the heaviest I've ever been that I saw on a scale, and I was 326.
326.
326. Mm-hmm. Which, even for 6'3", unless you're 10% body fat, 326 is too large. So you and I kind of started working out together. I think because you had joined a gym like maybe the year before, and you had kind of started working out. And so like I would go and I would get on the treadmill and do, I was big, like I would just kind of run, or I would just kind of walk and then try and run for like 1/10 of a mile or 1/4 of a mile and then walk some more. And that's like what I would do 3 or 4 days a week. And I would go for like, 45 minutes or something. And then 2 or 3 days a week, like the other days, you and I would get together and we would lift, and then we would play like racquetball for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh my God.
As long as we could keep as long as we could keep the court reserved for that long, we played racquetball like all day.
Yeah. As long as we could play.
Yeah. So the long story short of that was, throughout that year, I definitely lost some weight. I remember getting down to like 285, 287, something like that. And I remember being like, oh wow, like some of my shirts fit a little better, and I was like, this is super cool. But the thing that I didn't change, like I did one part of the equation, right? I made myself more active.
Okay.
But I didn't change anything about the way I ate.
Okay.
In fact, I can remember many times you and I would get together and lift, and then we'd play racquetball for 3 hours, and then we'd like go to B-Dubs and eat like...
Or order a large pizza.
Yeah, get a large pizza or eat a ton of wings, or, And so like, first of all, that we were eating a lot of food, and we weren't eating like super high quality food.
Yeah.
So I was like able to lose weight in spite of not changing my nutrition habits. I'm not going to call it a diet, because I think diet has a connotation of like being a temporary thing. So it's like, just think if I'd have started eating less and better while we were doing that, I probably would have lost maybe another 20 or 30 pounds. Right.
Right.
I didn't know that at the time. Like I was going, well, I was justifying what I ate because I was more active. Right. So
I can afford to eat this.
I can take in these calories because I'm burning so much, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So that was like great for that year. But after that, I think that's when your first child was born and you couldn't really work out as much anymore. So then I kind of stopped going, because like I was like, well, that's no fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so I didn't see a whole lot of like progress. I mean, I lost 30 pounds or so. Well, it didn't take long to like put that back on, because I hadn't instilled in myself any habits of changing how I ate. Which, side note, remember, this was like a couple months ago, I had told you how I was like thinking about, I was looking at like doing like a nutrition and wellness degree or something online.
Yes.
Or,
Yeah.
and you were like, yeah, it's funny because I remember telling Andrea at some point along your journey when you started getting healthier, like, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to like be a trainer or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would be cool to be a trainer. And that's something I thought about doing too, is like doing like a certification.
Right.
But the nutrition part of it intrigues me more because I have learned that is way more important.
Really?
That is like, well, to me, my personal opinion is you cannot out exercise a bad diet. You can't out exercise bad nutrition plans, habits, whatever. Like you maybe can for a while, but at some point you need to learn how to fuel your body properly, or else you're just going to be in a vicious cycle of, I'm eating a whole bunch of garbage and I'm putting in this time at the gym, but like I'm either A, not putting on muscle mass if that's your goal, or B, I'm not losing fat if that's your goal. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, then what is the point of doing that, of doing either thing? Because that's what I learned on my second attempt. So a little background, this was like it was like a slow and steady thing that kept creeping on me. Okay. I remember in 2016 in March, we were, Reed, the keyboard player with David, we were doing some shows in London and Ireland. And Reed and I got to go out to Dublin like a couple days early. Mm-hmm. And so there's a long kind of a background story, but we did like a bunch of touristy things and just bummed around Dublin, and it was awesome. But one of the things we did, we went to the Guinness, beer, like went to their like factory, not factory, but
the plant,
the
brewery,
Thank you. Gosh, I couldn't think of the word. And it was pretty cool. But one of the things was they had like this old black and white video from probably like the 20s.
Okay.
Of like how they used to make their barrels and store the Guinness. Okay. And it's just this video of this guy hammering barrels into shape all day. And he doesn't have a shirt on. He's huge in like, he's like a big, strong guy. Not like super cut or anything, but like, right. Dude is strong. And it sparked this conversation between Reed and I. And keep in mind, at this point, I'm still like 320 pounds. Okay. I'd put on back on the weight that I had lost when we had worked out. So I was back to like around 320, something like that.
Gotcha.
But it sparked this conversation between he and I of, man, just think like back in the day, there were no office jobs. There were no IT jobs. There weren't jobs where people just went to work and sat on their ass all day and were inactive. Like this guy did this for 8 hours a day, and he probably walked to work a mile or two and then walked home.
Or rode a bike.
Or yeah. Like he wasn't, he probably, like, if you've ever been to Dublin, like, especially back then, like that's not it's a very old city with like narrow streets and like, even now, like it's a foot traffic city, and just thinking about like, we were just like that dude literally, and Reed is like in really good shape. So no one knows him, but like, it wasn't like two fat people having this conversation. It was me and then Reed. But we were just like, that dude literally did this for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, was riding a bike or walking to and from work, like probably a couple miles. Yeah. He literally could eat whatever he wanted. So he, like the typical like Irish diet you think is like meat and potatoes and whatever. And he probably ate that every night. But his job was so physically demanding that like it wasn't like he was eating that and his body was storing it. Like he was using all of the nutrients from this food every day. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And like the other thing that we talked about then is like, yeah, and even today, if you had a job like that, food isn't really the same. Food's not quite as pure as it once was.
Right.
You know? Which that's something we can maybe get into later. I want to talk about like the quality of your food versus other things. But anyway, so that was March of 2016, and it kind of lit this really faint flame in my mind. And so then, if you fast forward, is November 5th of 2017. I will never forget the day. It was a Sunday, and my mom had come down to visit us for the weekend. And for whatever reason, it had been like a super stressful visit with her.
I remember that.
Like for me personally, like just super stressful. And so, you know, she left to drive home on Sunday. And I remember Amy kind of being like, well, what do you want to do now? Meaning like, you know, at this point in the day, like, what do you want to do? And I was just like so mentally and emotionally exhausted. I just kind of turned to her. I was kind of joking, but I probably said it in kind of a butthole way. But I was like, well, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to the gym. Because I had a Planet Fitness membership for a couple years. I think I had it since when I started playing with David. But I had gone like 5 times in the span of like 2.5 years or whatever. You know, it wasn't something I was doing all the time. But I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to the gym. And I went, and it was more or less to like clear my mind and maybe stop feeling so frustrated, and like I felt really kind of tight and just, you know. And so I didn't know what to do or anything, but I just got on a treadmill and I just walked at like as brisk a pace as I could handle. And then when I felt up to it, I was like, all right, I'm going to try and run, and I'm just going to see how long I can run before I have to like step on the side rails or back the speed back down or whatever. And it was like 1/10 or 2 of a mile. It was not long. You know, I probably did like total distance, like maybe 1.25 miles or 1.5 miles. And then I came home. But that was the first day. And I remember when I came home, I said, I'm not going to eat the way I used to. And so I just I made a salad and I put some chicken on it. And I mean, like, it was tiny. It was like a cereal bowl size salad and like 2 little chicken tenders on it. And that was my lunch. And then whatever Amy made for dinner is what I had for dinner. And then the next day I got up, I went early in the morning. I did the same thing, but I just tried to push myself a little bit farther every time. And when you go to the gym, you don't know what you're doing. You think that, oh yeah, well, I got to run. A run that's going to make me skinny, you know? And so I didn't set out to like become a runner. It was just, that was the thing I thought was going to help me lose weight, get me to where I wanted to be.
Where you wanted to go. Right.
So every time, and I just like did it the next day and the next day, and I would come home and I would like eat a banana for breakfast after I went to the gym. And then for lunch, I would have that little small salad with like 2 chicken tenders on it. So I bet total, I didn't get into counting calories till a few months later, but I bet you I wasn't eating more than 1,500 calories.
Jeez Louise.
Which that's low, especially for a guy my size at the time.
Yeah.
Because I weighed myself probably a week to 10 days after I started going. So like I weighed myself on the 15th, let's say, of November, and I was 320, or I was like 315. I think I was 315. So I bet you in that 10 days I literally would do that every time. And like I got on the treadmill and I would like, okay, well, today I was able to run like 0.3 of a mile without stopping. and then I would walk some more. And then, then the next day I could run. I remember being so excited when I ran a half mile without stopping. Just thinking like, dude, I ran a half mile without stopping, like nonstop, a half mile. And then I would like walk to the rest of the mile or whatever. And I was eating the same thing. I would come home with a banana. And this whole time, the only thing I'm drinking is water. I'm just pounding water. I'm trying to get like a gallon or more of water every day, which I had given up soda earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. I haven't had a soda since like, I don't know, April of 2017 or something.
Jeez Louise.
Which that was like a thing that I was like, man, I feel like I drink a lot of this. I wonder if I would feel less shitty if I didn't drink soda. So it was kind of an experiment of willpower to like, can I cut this out for a week?
Right.
Oh, cool. I haven't had one in a week. I wonder if I can go another week. And then eventually it was like, man, I don't even
Your
want
body
them.
stops.
I don't want them anymore.
Craving
it was tough at first.
Yeah.
So
the thing about that is because the stuff it's sugar, right? And the body is rewarded by the release of dopamine with that.
Exactly.
It happens.
Exactly.
And it's an addiction, and it's hard to overcome.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah. So I just kept, and I did start, I kind of got into this routine of like, okay, well, I'll do like 30 minutes on the treadmill, and I would just walk, and then I would like run for as much or as long as I could run, and then walk, and then I would try and run again for as long as I could run, and then walk for that 30 minutes. And then I would go to like the cable machines, because no matter, I don't care if I was a big dude and I looked intimidating. Anyone who's never really been in the gym before and lifted weights, nobody just goes to the free weights and the barbells right away because you're intimidated, because you don't know what you're doing and you don't want to look like the idiot, right? Especially if you don't have another buddy there who does know what they're doing and can spot you or show you the correct form. But the cable machines are like a good gateway into that, because it's kind of hard to do them with bad form. Now, the resistance and things like that aren't exactly the same, but it's still stressing your muscles, which is also another way to burn calories and increase blood flow to those areas. And I learned this way later in my journey, but like resistance training is more important than cardio for losing fat. I'll qualify that because I'm going to come back to that.
Now,
so just that, like, I just kept doing that week after week after week. And I remember by the end of November, I had made this deal with myself.
And that's the close to the top of November is when this
November 5th is when it started. That was my first day going.
Okay.
And by the end of November, I think it was after Thanksgiving, not before. Yeah, it was after Thanksgiving. I had made a deal with myself that by December 1st, I was going to be able to run a 5K nonstop, which a 5K is 3.1 miles. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. So I remember, like, I said, I got so excited when I was able to run a half mile nonstop. And then I remember hitting like the milestone, and then, a mile and a quarter and a mile and a half. And it kept feeling easier and easier. And the whole time I'm eating the same thing. So I'm really, like, I was losing weight pretty rapidly. And your heart is a muscle. So cardio strengthens your heart. It makes your heart more efficient at pumping blood and circulating oxygen throughout your body. So I just kept getting better and better at that. And I remember we were in Boston. That's right. It was the weekend, or it was like the last weekend in November. We were in Boston. We played a show like on a Thursday night up there. And the hotel we were staying at had a gym. And I went to the gym that day before sound check, and I'll be damned if I got to like 2.5 miles or something. And at that point, I don't think I'd made it past like 2.5 or 2.25. And I just remember thinking like, man, I feel pretty good. I'm really just going to like really push myself to see if I can make it to 3.1. Because I was like, well, I only got like 5 or 6 days left until December 1st. And I made a deal with myself. I was going to be able to run 3.1 miles by then. And I just like toughed it out and made it to 3.1. And I just remember thinking, holy cow, like I did it. And I was so jazzed about that. Like I remember like telling all the guys on the bus and they were all super pumped. And then I did it the next morning before we left to go to the next gig. So I was like, dude, two 5Ks 2 days in a row. And then I did it the next day. We were in Portland, Maine, and I did it the next day. And I was like, oh my God. And it just kept feeling easier and easier, you know?
That's crazy.
And I can remember, you know, at that point I was like, wow, it wasn't even a whole month ago that I could barely run like 0.2 of a mile and I would be exhausted. And I just kept pushing myself. And so I kept increasing the distance. Now I wasn't like dead sprinting all these, you know, it was like a casual,
Well,
it was
I was
like,
gonna ask
it was like
you about your,
I would run like a 10-minute mile, like 6 miles an hour.
okay.
It's like a little bit more than a casual jog.
Yeah, but it's fast for somebody that's short. I mean, that's, you know what I mean?
Sure. Well, and you know, I'd only been really like doing it for a month. So, and I'm also trying to lift weights but I'm like being really mindful of how much I eat and what I eat, which I thought was going to be hard on the road, but I like made a commitment to like, if it was a bus date, I would like take some of my own food so it would be easier. And I would always like order a salad with like some lean chicken on it or something if we were getting food from somewhere. And I wasn't, you know, the hard thing is when you're on the road, there's always like some local donut place or some local bakery that's like out of this world. And it's like, you got to go try it. You got to go try it. And I just I was like, I don't care. Like, and I played this mental game with myself because we like Reed would go, or our guitar tech at the time, Pat, like they were really in shape and not big dudes, and they can get away with like eating some of that stuff in moderation and it doesn't affect them. So they want to go check these places out. So I was like, yeah, I'll go with you. I'll go check it out. And I would like go with them and stand in this amazing donut shop and see it all and smell it all and just be like, you're not having it, Ice. You're not eating it. You're not eating it.
Oh my
so
gosh,
it was like,
man.
One thing that I want to talk about as this topic goes on in future episodes is like, there's definitely a physical challenge to losing weight and getting healthy, but the mental challenge is not to be overlooked. And as soon as you can start to control your emotional reaction to food, then you can fucking do anything. Because so many times the way we eat is based on an emotional reaction and not a reaction of, do I really feel hungry? Does my body actually need nutrients right now? Or am I just in this social situation where everyone else is eating and they're eating these amazing chips and dip or whatever? Or, man, I fucking love donuts and look how I may never get to come back to this place because we're in wherever.
Right.
I should try one. It's like, no, man, like as good as donuts are, a donut's just a donut. Like, chill out, you know? So,
Right.
or whatever it is. I'm using donuts as an example because that is definitely a weak spot for me. Like, it is tough for me to go into like not like a Dunkin' or a Krispy Kreme, but if it's like a good, legit, like mom and pop, someplace that's been there forever, and
so
it's
good.
like, it's tough, man.
It's warm and
let's not talk about it because I'm gonna want one. But like I would go to those places with those guys and just hang out with them, and I would, you know, it wasn't like I was like having blinders on. I was taking in everything and experiencing everything, but the actual
partaking
food
and eating,
and it was tough at first, but I was once I started to see, I would step on the scale and I started to see like weight coming off, and I started to feel that, oh man, now I can run like 4 miles nonstop, and man, it doesn't feel that hard. And then it was like nothing could stop me because the vision of my goal was more important to me than that short little dopamine release that whatever food would cause. That's the thing I did differently the second time around. It's like I was working out and I was really putting in the effort as far as like running and walking and trying to lift weights, but I also was not eating like
you totally flipped your diet and the way you approach food.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, you know, people would be like, well, what was like what caused you, what made you want to do this? And I said this for a while, and I just thought about it this morning, but like, you know, I talked about you and I working out early on, like 7 years before that. And then Reed and I in Ireland and all that. And like, as much as those things were like in the back of my mind, it was like after I went on that first day on November 5th, it was like someone just flipped a switch inside me and was like, okay, you're actually going to do it this time, and nothing's going to fucking stop you.
So about that, I know we talked a little bit about that, you and I, about that weekend.
Yeah.
Because it was something that stood out to you prominently. And I guess I didn't realize how much you kind of wrestled with this, because it was never something we really discussed.
With what? Wrestled with what?
Weight.
Oh, as far as it being, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I knew that we would do the gym thing from my perspective because I was never really overweight. Even though metabolically now I am.
Well, yeah, but that's it.
Oh, how the tables have turned. But it was just something to do, to hang out with a buddy of mine.
Right.
And do stuff that we like to do. So I never really thought of it like something that maybe you were either struggling or wrestling with, or just kind of dealing with it.
Well, I think probably when you and I were working out, yeah, it was probably that for me too. It was more just like, well, I get to hang out with Ryan and it's fun. Like we played so much racquetball, and it was addicting. Like
it was.
I don't know if I was doing it at the time. That time, I don't know if it was really like I went in with the mindset of trying to lose weight. It was just like, I want to do something. I didn't have a goal in mind.
Gotcha.
The second time around, it was kind of the same thing. It was like, I need to go do this for like my mental and emotional health. I was really like just not feeling great about life. And it was like, I did that for like a week, but then I started to really feel like, oh man, I think this is something I can stick to. And then I started setting small incremental goals like that. Like, oh, I want to be able to run a 5K by the end of the month. And then it was like, okay, well, when you're 320 pounds, you have no idea. At least I didn't, because everyone's always, well, you're a big dude. And everyone would always say the same thing. Like, oh, 320 pounds. Well, you carry your weight really well. And I'd always be like, no, I don't. Like, this 2X shirt barely fucking fits. And like, you know, you can't see my belt because my stomach's hanging over. Like, just things like that. Like, I have to buy size 46 waist jeans. Like, I don't carry my weight well at all. Like, I understand what people mean when they say that and they're trying to be nice. But it's like, I mean, I guess it's nice to know that maybe people, that wasn't like the first thing they saw when they looked at me or the first thing they thought of. But it's like, when you're that big, there's no way to hide it. But when you're that big, you don't know how much weight you should actually lose. Because I remember thinking like, okay, well, I'm 320. I bet if I got down to like 270, I'm going to look a lot better, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that was like my first goal was like, I want to get down to 270. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like by Christmas of that year, I was like 278 or something. I remember weighing myself at my parents' house when we were up there for Christmas. And I think I was like 278, which I was super excited about because, you know, it's holidays. There's all kinds of sweets. Like most people put on a couple pounds between like Thanksgiving and Christmas, you know? Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, I was like 281 when we left our house to go to Ohio. And so I've lost 3 pounds in the 5 days that we've been up here, you know, like that's awesome. And I really was like really stringent about, I had like a couple Christmas cookies and like my mom makes really good, like cinnamon like sweet rolls that we eat on Christmas morning. I had like one.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Like I had one, but that was it. Cause she only makes them one time a year. So I wasn't not going to eat them, but I had one instead of having like 9.
Right. A whole pallet of them.
Yeah.
Man,
there's my pan of sweet rolls. Where are yours?
What self-restraint though, man.
Well,
holy cow.
I mean, it's funny because there have been subsequent Christmases since then where part of me feels like I have it a little bit more under control. So I allow myself to indulge a little bit because I know, okay, well, tomorrow or in 2 days, I'm going to get back on my normal eating habits and I'm going to be back in the gym training hard and it's fine. Like if the scale goes up a pound or 2, I'm not going to freak out about it. But then it was like, it was too early for me to deviate from the plan. And I was so laser focused on like, I'm seeing progress and people like I remember my family members being like, you've lost some weight, right? Which that's like 43 pounds or 42 pounds by then, which that's, I feel like when you're like 320 pounds, once you lose about 20 to 30 pounds, it's pretty noticeable.
Wow.
It's not like, oh, you're super skinny. But you start to notice it a little bit in your face and maybe on your sides, like your haunches or whatever.
Right.
And so then we came back home from that and I just kept chugging away. So then my next goal was like, okay, well, once I hit 270, then I want to get down to 250. And I bet if I weighed like 250 at 6'3", like I'm a big guy, I'll probably look pretty good. And it just kept being like, okay, well, I'm still not seeing what I want to see. I'm feeling better, but let's keep going. Like, because the other thing is I can't even think what it's called. When you go to the doctor and they check you know what I'm talking about though,
yes,
right?
Yes.
The BMI.
Yes. BMI.
Your body mass index.
Mass index, right.
It says for a 6'3" male, you should be like 186 pounds or something. 186 pounds. I'm sorry.
Wait. For what?
For a 6'3" male.
186.
The official BMI is like 186 or 188 pounds. I'm like, dude, there's no way. Like, I would have to be a string bean and have no muscle mass, and no fat. Like I would just have to be. 188 pounds. That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
So I just kept pushing and pushing, and I started learning more and more along the way, which I guess maybe that's a good place to stop. And we can, the next episode can be about like, because I really want to talk about mistakes I made and the things I did that are good and like things that I've watched other people do when they try to attempt it and they make it so complicated. And I'm going to be honest, like it's hard. Mentally and physically, it's hard. It is not complicated. It's not. It's not. Right. People make it way more complicated than they need to, which ends up making it even harder than it needs to, which is why a lot of people can't stick to it.
Okay.
And I'm going to throw this out. Here's spoiler alert. So I started November 5th, 2017. By Christmas of 2018, I was at my lowest weight that I've ever remember weighing as an adult or even in high school, probably. I was at 198 pounds.
Jeez Louise.
But I felt not great.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Like just because I was 198 pounds didn't mean I like had 6-pack abs and was benching 225,
right.
Like things like that. It was like, I realized, okay, I don't want to be skinny and be skinny fat. I don't mind being the most comfortable I ever felt. I was down to 198, but then like all of 2019 and most of the summer of 2018, I was between like 208, 212, 215. And I felt really good there. Anywhere between like 205 and 215. That's where I like to be. And we'll get into more of that. But I want to throw this out here because I know you talked to me about this. And I think so. Bummer, bummer for me. It's just a number on the scale, whatever. But I'm at like 230 right now, and I'm not super stoked about it. And I think you said you're at like 230, right?
I am. I'm 230.
Which is so funny because anyone that, if we had a side by side picture, people would not think we weigh the same.
I don't think they would.
They would think that I'm heavier because the way you carry your weight and your build, you have way more muscle mass on you than I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a perfect example of like someone who weighs 230 but is a little more muscular compared to someone who's 230 and it's still mostly fat. I think you had talked to me about you wanted to be down to I forget what you said, 215 or something by like June.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
We're going to do that together. And we're going to use this podcast as an accountability. and for the next podcast, like we're going to weigh ourselves today.
Okay.
And then we'll probably record again on Monday.
Yeah.
We will check in and report our weight. And we're going to keep doing that. And we're going to, I don't know if we can lose 15 pounds in 2 months, 2.5 months, but 10 easily. If you can lose a pound of body fat a week, body fat, not weight, but body fat, you're doing good. Because you don't want to lose muscle mass if you can help it.
Yeah, right.
But that's what we're going to do. And we're going to be accountable with each other and everyone that's listening.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
Man, I think 215, I think that would be a really good weight for me.
And I know it'll be a little tougher because you've got to ease back into exercise. But I still think you can do
a little bit.
You can.
Yeah.
You can. I think you can lose 8 pounds in that time just by eating, changing how you eat. But yeah, so that's the beginning. I hope I didn't bore anybody. Sorry, we always go longer than we plan, but
we always do.
This is something I'm really passionate about, so it's going to be hard. You're going to have to keep me because I'll just start talking about it.
Keep you reeled in.
Yeah.
No, this is good. I enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. Okay, so. Next episode will be moving on and talking about like complicated, just not making it complicated.
Really understanding the science of how to lose weight and fat, and we'll talk a bit more about like things that I did that I wish I would have done differently, and things that I did that I'm glad I did.
On another topic here, I was thinking about when we end our podcast, I thought of a really neat, I think it's neat idea of how we can wrap up a podcast.
Hit me. Tell me.
And that is sharing a random fact.
Oh, okay, great. I like that. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got one.
Let's hear it.
Did you know that a jellyfish is 95% water?
I don't know, but that means if you have a bunch of jellyfish all gathered around, you're never more than 5% from a pool.
Good share.
Oh, I was trying to think of how that Mitch Hedberg joke went, where he's like, I was going to crowd dive, and I know that humans are like 85% water or whatever, so I figured it was safe because they're only 50% away from a pool or whatever.
That's funny. I don't know if I've heard that one. All right, let me try another fact, and then you can good share it or whatever.
Right. I knew that's what you're waiting for, but I had to tie that in. So,
but no, I thought about this. I thought,
yeah,
this because I've got this app that is just raw facts. And
sure.
And they're really interesting. Okay. So here's another one. Did you know if you took every human on Earth and removed all the space that is between atoms, you can fit the volume of all those people into the size of a sugar cube?
Good share. I don't even fucking understand that.
All right, try another one.
Wait, say that again.
Yeah, so
you remove-
there is more space between our atoms than there is actual stuff. Like,
okay. Now it makes sense.
so if you take the atoms and you take out the space and you just push the atoms together, you can take every person on the planet and do that, and we would wind up being compressed into the size of a sugar cube.
Each person or every single person together
Everybody.
would be one sugar cube.
One sugar
Holy
cube.
shit. Okay.
It's pretty awesome, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So, here's a fact. A man sued Bank of America for erroneously foreclosing on his home and won. When they didn't pay the fees, he foreclosed their bank.
Whoa. Wait. For real?
These are all facts.
That's amazing. Good share.
Thanks for listening to the Good Share podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or just enjoyed the podcast in general, give us 5 stars or thumbs up or whatever it is that you can do through the apparatus that you're using. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell. You can also find more content and more about the podcast at www.goodsharepodcast.com.